Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. It's Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. I'm so glad to have you visiting and seeing what we're up to today. So in today's video, this is going to be a furniture flip. We were contacted by a friend of ours that was moving, and in her move she had a gorgeous China Hutch that unfortunately was one of those that could not be taken apart, and it got dropped, and so actually it broke in half. So instead of just throwing it out to the dump, she contacted us and thought, is this something that you would be interested in it? Please take it off my hands. I want to just give it to you. So yes, we would love a China Hutch, and yes, I think Chris could fix it. So that was just totally awesome. Now that happened months ago, and we finally got to a place where Chris can redo it. Sometimes you have to evaluate the piece, see what you can do to it. So today's video, this is how he put the two pieces of the broken China Hutch back together and what we did with it.
Okay, so here it is, the two that should have been one. So now Chris has the task of seeing if he can put it back together. And yes, he did toy with the idea of making it two separate pieces, but just the way that we haven't been able to run across China Hutches, we thought, you know what, let's put this back together. Okay, well, let's have Chris put this back together. So the two windows on the side of this China Hutch are those that are do not open and close, that you have to unscrew, kind of be a contortionist to get your hand inside there to remove those windows. But of course you want to start taking as much of it apart before moving it, especially these glass doors. I don't know about you all, but when it comes to removing pieces of glass, it is not cost efficient to have to buy and replace glass. So we take glass very seriously here at our workshop. So wrapping it up, making sure that we set it off to the side safely. So now that he's hiked this bad boy on top of the work shelf, you can really start to assess what needs to be put back together. He was able to remove all that glass, but now he needs to get those doors off. So really get in there and try to remove all this hinges, all those hardwares, making sure that he keeps all the hardware in one place and remembering where it goes back to. For these windows that don't move, they don't open up, they're not hinged, he's going to be writing a little L and a little R for left and right. That way he knows where they go back because the screw holes will not match up. So luckily the places that this broke were points that were added on. They were details that were added on to the piece to make it look beautiful. So luckily they were screwed in, so they're actually pieces that are going to be able to be removed and re-glued. When you're working with furniture pieces, not only has it been screwed in and it has been usually glued, but there's also usually some brad nails. So since they are bent and not going to be able to be reused, he needs to hammer them out as much as, you want to remove them so they're not in the way of putting it back together. So now that he's got the brads removed, now he can get this put back together. So a little bit of tight bond glue in those spaces. Now the main concern here is just getting it back together. We can spackle it, we can deal with that once it's back together, but you need to get your frame all nice and sturdy. Though we have no miracles of putting a glass back together, the shelves inside are glass. It has a beautiful light, so you want to keep the glass if you can. Now it's just a chip off the side, and there's plenty of wood surface area to hold this glass in. So you could just leave it off and it would just structurally hold what you needed to. But since we have the piece of glass and we have some glue and we got some tape, why not at least tape it back on? Like I said, it's not cost efficient. It's in the far corner. You're not really going to see it. But at least why not try to glue it back on? So using a little bit of the tight bond glue and some packing tape to just hold it. I mean, the buyer can figure out if they want to replace the glass, but it's minimal compared to what the damage was to this whole China Hutch anyway, but it will hold enough just so you don't have that missing corner. So now he's going to be applying glue to both sides, letting it get all the way in there, and then the excess you can go ahead and scrape off with a razor blade, but we're still going to be wrapping it in the packing tape. We're not going to hide that it was cracked or that it was chipped. It is what it is. So now that he's got the main brokenness problems dealt with, it's time to get this very glossy China Hutch Scuff sand. As you can see, it is very glossy, so just to make sure that the paint is going to stick really well, he's just going in with some 220 sandpaper and just taking off some of that shine. One of the steps to prepping a piece, if you don't have a certain kind of primer, I guess there's lots of grabber primers out there now, but sometimes you have to think, okay, cost efficient, what are you going to sell it for? Well, how much product do you want to put on here? Or will you just take the time to scuff and get that glossiness off? Everybody has a way of doing furniture and what works for them, and so this is what works for us, especially when you're going along scuff sanding and like this too, especially knowing that the piece had been dropped. You can check out making sure that anything is going to be being fixed that needs it. Like here when he's going over the body of the hutch, he realizes, oh, it's missing one of those little slide gliders that helps one slide across floor, but also when you're missing one of them or two of them, it makes it not sit level. So just as he was scuff sanding it, going through and then just adding, we just buy some of these replacements on Amazon. So now that he has that all done, now he can finally get to cleaning it. He's created a lot of sandy dust, so he blew it off with the air compressor, and he's just getting it cleaned with some Superclean and some hot water. Just as much as prepping your surface, getting that shiny off, either with sanding or a primer, is as much as getting any grime, any grease, any build up off of this piece. A lot of times people use Pledge or some kind of a wax product, and you definitely want to get anything that's going to prevent your paint from sticking off. Now, because it's almost a veneer board where it's a veneer over the pressed, he's going to go in with some shellac and just give it a coat of shellac. This is going to help the paint stick. It's going to even out any of the porosity where when he was sanding he might have gone through into that pressed board. And so there again, it's just everybody does what works for them, and this is a nice simple spray job. And then in about 15-20 minutes, that shellac should be good and dry. It's nice thing about it is it dries really fast. So now he's going to go in with some black onyx ready to use black paint off of the shelf from Walmart, just painting the edges of this piece. We definitely know there's some detail on this piece. There's a lot of that dental work at the top of this piece that you definitely want to be able to show off with some distressing. So instead of painting the whole piece black, undercoating it, just going for those edges, looking for that detail edges that you know when you get to the end of the project and your final color, what you want to emphasize, what details you want to show through. And that's where he's going in and painting black. So now he needs to top coat that black in. So when you go in to distress it, that you're just not sanding it off. So he's just sealing it in with some Rust-Oleum and the clear coat in the matte. You just need some type of a top coat just to seal that in so it stays in place and it doesn't sand off. Now that he's made it this far, it is time to put the two pieces together. So using a roller dolly system, just going to be able to roll that in and out of our spray room. So he's using that to put it on top, and probably could have used a two-man group here, but you know, he never asked for help. So he's just getting that on the dolly, and then he's going to be putting the other piece on top and getting them screwed together so he can get it sprayed all as one. Now that he has the body of the cabinet back together, he still has a little bit more work and just taping off of this drawer. If you heard me say out, he is going to be using our Graco sprayer to spray this piece today. So we have this random roll of I don't know, maybe trash bags that I thrifted forever ago that has been so handy in spraying. So just taping that on and making sure that that drawer is all nice and secure, that you're just getting that drawer front. So we'll be using the rest of this can probably that's been in our hoard. It was a color match to the Chippy Barn paint, the color Putty, and using it with our Graco sprayer. This will just help devour this large china hutch. And it's always a good day when you can put a item on the rollers and be able to roll it into the spray room. Though this just fits, but perfect for spraying. And then when you notice, Chris did put the body of the hutch upside down. That way you could get that most area sprayed from the upside down position, all those crevices, all those little areas. Now, when it comes to the inside of an area like this, it is nice to be able to get to spray it, but I'm not going to tell you that the sprayer is going to hit every little nook and cranny that there is, but it's going to get 99% of it. And after he has sprayed the piece, I'll go back in and I'll hit all those little areas that you don't think that you will see, but you will see. So I'm just going to go back in while it's still wet and touch up those areas. And I never know why this happens sometimes, but the next day I come back out and I'm like, oh man, there's drips and they've dried. Oh, does that suck? I don't know why. Maybe it was too much paint on, the weather, who knows. So since this is the first coat, and even if it was the second coat, we'd still have to go back in. So I'm just going back in with the mouse sander, the BLACK+DECKER mouse sander, and just making sure that I get these all nice and smooth. And it's no fun, but it does happen. But you do want to make sure that you get them nice and smooth, and then remembering to removing that sanding dust. This is one of the reasons that I like to soak our hardware in Dawn dish soap in very hot water. Now, it all came nice and clean, but oh my gosh, this is the gunk that came off of that hardware. That definitely would have prevented our paint from sticking and caused some problems. So after spray painting the hardware black, I'm now going in and sealing it in with some clear Rust-Oleum top coat. Now, after that second coat has dried, now we can flip the body of the hutch over and get the rest of it that has not been painted. So I have to share with you, poor Chris, when he works on these pieces when he has the weekend off, when it's a big weekend or after his working day, because he still works a full-time job. So he does these major furniture flips. So he had painted all that black underneath so we could distress it. But throughout the week, I kept staring at it until he could get in there to go back and do all the distressing. And I'm just like, I don't know if I want this piece to be distressed like that. I don't know. I kept looking at it while I was working on some other projects for you all, and I'm like, what if we just go in and we scuff sand it, just make sure that it's nice and smooth. This paint is just a wonderful paint. And yeah, so I had a different idea for adding some antiquing and distressing on this piece. So after getting the entire piece sanded nice and smooth, so it's smooth to the touch, and then going ahead and getting it blown off with the air compressor, because we now created a whole bunch of sanding dust, and I definitely don't want to get that waxed on. So my actual thought on antiquing it and distressing it this way with the black and the clear was because of all the detail on these doors, along with that detail, that dental work at the top. It's just so hard to go in and sand each one of those areas and distress it. So especially with this little detail here, getting in and sanding that without coming down to the bare wood, just, you know, I really thought about it after it was all said and done, and I knew that I had this black wax. So what I'm doing it, yep, as you see, I'm adding the black wax first and then taking the clear wax and wiping the most off. I just want it to take in those detailed areas, and then it's going to kind of give an overall antiquing to the rest of the piece. It's just really going to tie this piece together. Do you all do that? Sometimes you're in the process, in your first thought, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, but I want to do this now. This is definitely that wax on and then wax off. It may seem like a lot of work, but sanding it by hand and distressing it would have been a lot of work also. So you just keep going in, and then if it didn't hit those details, you can put a little bit more. You definitely have quite a bit of playtime. The Jolie wax, that it's not a quick dry like the Waverly Antiquing wax, so you do have a little bit of playtime with it. I just absolutely love how this is oh my gosh, it's just taking this piece to a whole another level. I'll always give it to God as a God wink moment of coming up with an idea like that. Then for the areas where our fingers just don't quite fit, Q-tips to the rescue. So if you were wondering why we chose a black wax, that was because we had painted the hardware black, and that will just tie it all together with this putty, lightly gray, white color, and this black hardware, and the antiquing black wax. Oh my gosh, just ties this whole piece together. Well, for a little bit more added detail, I have to say the drawer is in wonderful shape, but I can't help myself. I definitely think that this contact paper from the Dollar General definitely will tie just a little bit of hidden something when you open up that drawer. After cutting it to a workable size and getting that backing off it, now I always start off with that manufacturer's edge to the front of the drawer, because that is the drawer that's the first area somebody is going to see when they pull out that drawer, and their cut is always going to be straighter than my cut, so definitely always start at the front. So then I just work gingerly, making sure that there's no air bubbles, no air pockets, just making sure that it's good and attached. And then after I work my way up to the sides, then I just take my nail and my finger, making sure that I do a hard crease, making sure that it's giving me a good guideline to cut. And then after I get that all creased, I can pull back that corner, and then I will release that pressure by taking a nip right where that corner is. So when I go to cut the excess off with the X-Acto knife, that I'm just cutting it and not ripping it.
Okay guys, so what did you think? Yep, Chris got it back together. Once you start taking it apart and you realize which piece goes to which piece, and yeah, it all pretty much was able to be fixed. Of course, we're not miracle workers. We can't make glass go back together. But luckily that chip off of it, it's good enough. I hate to say that, but it was good enough. It structurally, if you set something on there the way that it was in the shelves, it was not going to make anything happen. Nothing was going to fall off. It just made me feel better putting the chipped, broken off piece back on there. I don't know what your feelings about that, but cost efficient for reselling in our area when you have to start buying glass it's just not cost efficient in our area. I have actually checked out on glass prices and whew, yeah. Anyway, so what did you think of the color? Now this was a color match that we did from the Chippy Barn paint, the putty color that we matched up. So this was leftover paint that we had that, you know, I'm trying to work through our stash, trying to work through our stock, and I'm like, let's use this one on it. And I absolutely love the color, and I was just hanging around looking at it at the shop after it was all said and done. And you know, it's always that God wink moment of, you know, neither of us got to distressing the piece or sanding on the piece. And the more I thought about the piece and all that detail, I'm like, you know, I wonder if we black or wax that, if that would do all that beautiful detail justice. So what did you guys all think about that? And it was just as much work to wax on, wax off, or sand and distress and then wax. So I absolutely love how this piece turned out. We put it in our booth, priced at $275 to start off with. We just never know in our area. Some pieces seem like they sit forever, and then some pieces you put in and they are gone the next, you know, that week. So it just takes that right person looking for that one piece that fits in their space. So I hope you enjoyed today's furniture makeover, and I want to thank my friend Teresa for giving us the chance to put this, or Chris, to put this piece back together. So thanks for watching today's video, guys, and if you're part of our YouTube family, as always, thank you. And if you're new and checking out our channel for the first time and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know what we're up to, and we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.